I'm not doing it again. 2 is good. First, I'm very pleased to present our budget for the 2025-2026 budget term. And our proposed budget is for $4,206,089. And this is underneath the New York state cap of 2.6%. The average estimated increase for most Rockville Center families will be just about $1 per month over what they're paying this year. And I hope everyone's had some time to see the many improvements that we have made to the library this year. This library was the budget has been introduced at our April 7th board meeting and will be placed on the ballot for the budget vote, which will be held on May 20th at Southside High School. Are there any questions or comments on the budget? We can take a moment. Okay, if there are no questions, we okay? All right. If there are no further questions, I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator tonight. Eileen Burke-Bucaria is a former trustee. She served on the library board from 2000 until 2021. She and her husband moved to Rockville Center in 1991 and raised their 2 children here. Eileen's a retired teacher, having taught at the Neola High School and at Malloy College. She also is the administrative director of the Center for Transformative Change, part of the Interfaith Nutrition Network, and we're very grateful that she's agreed to moderate for us this evening. Please welcome Eileen and our candidates.
Hi, everybody. I know how nerve-wracking this is, so we'll get started right away. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Obviously, it's great to have an audience, and when you're answering these questions, it's tough doing it to an empty room, so it's always great to know who you're talking to. So we have 3 candidates tonight running for 2 open seats. Meryl Sussman, who is currently on the board, Christine Faraday, and Gretchen Brown. We will be using the school district's placement on the ballot in the order of opening statements, starting with Ms. Faraday, then Ms. Sussman, then Ms. Brown. Okay, the candidates will have 3 minutes for their opening statements. The question order will rotate in the same way, so that Ms. Faraday will get the first question, then Ms. Sussman, then Ms. Brown, and then you'll see how it goes. All right. Anyway, we'll keep it fair, and everyone will be able to rotate through that way. For closing statements, the order is reversed. Ms. Brown will go first, and the candidates will have 3 minutes to make their closing statements. Okay? There'll be no rebuttals, no cell phone use. Our library assistant director is our timekeeper, so she will be letting candidates know your time, how much time is left. All right, and I think we're all set. We're all set with this. We're all good. Okay, so. As I mentioned before, we'll start with the opening statement, and we'll start with Ms. Faraday.
Yeah. It's on. Did it?
No.
No.
You have fun.
I don't know where the button is.
Yeah. All right, now it is.
More forceful. Got it. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Christine Faraday, and I'm a proud resident of Rockville Center for the last 7 years. My husband, Pat, grew up in Rockville Center, and we have 2 lovely girls who are school age, and they are 7 and 11. I am a reference and instruction librarian at Nassau Community College. Reference and instruction is really just a fancy way to say I'm a librarian who also teaches classes. I'm also a full professor. I've been at Nassau Community College for 16 years, and I hope to be there until I retire because I really love it there. I'm here today because this library is fantastic. And I think everyone who works here does an amazing job. And I want to keep it. I want to keep it going. I want to just encourage everything that's going on in this library to continue. And I think I'd be a great addition for a number of reasons. I'm definitely going to need that 3-minute call to time. One of the reasons is that I'm currently working at Nassau Community College, and part of my job is committee work. And it's not just library committees, it's committees for the whole campus. So I work with people from every department on campus, and also students, administrators. We work with, the support staff, counselors, everybody on different issues that affect the campus. And I really enjoy that work. As I mentioned, it's a big part of my job. Also, I'm very active in the library community. I won't bore you with all the acronyms and all the names of the library associations, but the one I'm the most active in at the moment is the New York Library Association. I'm currently the chair of the membership committee. And my favorite thing about the New York Library Association is that it's not just librarians, it's librarians, but it's also trustees, it's also friends of the library, it's students, it's library support staff. And again, it's committee work, but then it's also getting together and dealing with different topics and then reporting back to the council. And Nyla is very interested in advocacy. So through my work with them, I am able to keep up on local and state issues that affect libraries in New York. I was also the library chairperson at Nassau for 3 years. So I have experience with budgets, personnel, and all that fun stuff. I stopped after 3 years because I missed the classroom. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sussman?
First, let me check. You can hear me. Very good. Okay. I am Meryl Sussman, and I am a current trustee for the library, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to tell you about myself and why I wish to continue to work on the Board of Trustees. I grew up in Levittown. At that time, there was only one car in our family. When Dad went off to work, Mom and the kids needed to find services close to home. My most treasured service was the bookmobile, which came twice a week. And what I really particularly appreciated was the fact that the librarian on the bookmobile saw what I checked out. And the next time it rolled around, there were more books with the authors I liked and the genres I liked. So she was very attentive. When I got a little older, I biked my way to the Levittown Public Library and enjoyed the air conditioning during the hot summer months because our house didn't have air conditioning. And I met friends for reading, relaxing, and chatting in the public areas. My career was as an upper level administrator in community colleges and state universities in 3 states. As an administrator, I oversaw large staffs of faculty and other professionals. I managed complex facilities and laboratories. I developed online and community-based programming and managed multi-million-dollar budgets while keeping an eye on the tax rates for our county and state residents. When retirement and new grandkids in Brooklyn brought us back to Long Island, my husband and I decided that we would live here where he grew up in Rockville Center, and we've been here for 9 years. And I know that because my daughter gave birth to our first grandchild as we were crossing Ohio on our way to Rockville Center, and he's about to turn 9. As I decided to give back to the library, I ran for a trustee position, and I have served for the past 3 years. I've been a member of the facilities and technology committees, and I serve as board secretary and now board vice president. As you appreciate, the role of libraries has changed, And we on the Facilities and Technology Committee have have developed a 5-year plan to develop technology, public spaces, and the infrastructure needed for our library. We can't get bigger, we can't get taller, we can't get wider, and we can't get younger, but we can keep the services up to date. I have learned a lot in my first 3 years, and I would like to continue to give back over the next term. So I hope that you would consider me for re-election as a trustee. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brown?
Thank you. Wow. Tough acts to follow. My name is Gretchen Brown, and I'm honored to be running for a seat on the library board. I love this library. It's been my home for a long time. I've called Rockville Center home for 47 years. It's where I raised my family and built a life rooted in community and service, and the library has always been at the heart of it. I was thinking back today that the day that I came into the library, very bedraggled, I'd walked like 4 kids here, and they were running like crazy people all through the library, hanging from the upstairs. I was so embarrassed, and I said to Ruth Levian, who was then the head of the children's department, "Do you think you have a job for me?" And she said, "You need to go to library school." And I said, "Library school? What's library school?" Needless to say, I found out what library school was. The minute I walked into the classroom, I knew I had found my calling. And I've been a librarian since 1989, when I started as a trainee here at Rockville Center. I went on to hold several roles here, including young adult specialist, program coordinator, adult reference librarian, assistant director, and director in the year 2000. I then left in 2005 and became the director of the Plainview Page Library. And when I started here in 2000 as director, my one goal, or one of my many goals, was to make the library a more customer service driven, warm, welcoming library, less restrictive, more open and friendly. And I created that same atmosphere at Plainview. When I was walking through the hallway this afternoon, looking at all the wonderful artwork, I looked at the plaque outside for the memorial lectures and realized that I was program director, one of the hats I wore here, and hired lots of those people to come and give wonderful talks at the library. We got to know Doris Kearns Goodwin, we had Will Shorts, we had I can't remember all of the names on there, but all well-known journalists, and they were wonderful. So throughout my career, I've built and managed budgets that were consistently supported by the communities I've served. I've successfully secured grant funding every year for programs and mostly capital improvements. And I started lots of committees in library work that I've done outside of the libraries that I've worked in. I just have to say that Plainview Page was considered a 5-star library for 10 consecutive years, named by Library Journal. I continue to work in libraries as a book moderator and a consultant. I teach religious education at St. Agnes, and I'm deeply committed to this library and others. Thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, wonderful, thank you so much. Now, we have a variety of questions. I think that sometimes the question may seem a little bit repetitious in terms of that some of you may have touched upon something in your opening statement. So I apologize for that, but because all 3 of you didn't get a chance to, in a sense, answer that question, but please don't worry about saying, well, I already told you this, but tell us again. You know, if you feel that you've already answered the question in your opening statement, please feel free to use the time to either develop that more or to repeat what you said. Okay, so this, again, I think many of you have touched on, so we'll start with Ms. Faraday first. So this question is, I'm going to combine a couple here. Really, the idea is, what do you hope to bring to the library as a trustee? Based on your background, based on your skill set, what do you hope to bring to the library as a trustee, and including what motivated you to go out on a limb and run for this position?
Good question. As I did mention, I love this library. We've only lived here for 7 years, but I'm here all the time. And I worked at Long Beach Public Library 20 years ago. That was my first library that I worked in. And I started at in technical services, I think it was called, part-time, and then I moved up to be a children's librarian. I had a wonderful time doing that. Eventually I moved to Malloy and then Nassau, as I mentioned before. But, you know, as much as I have visited so many other public libraries over the years, I really feel like this one is just incredible. And it really did. It made me want to be a part of it, to be a part of this community. I also think that I want to contribute. I feel like right now is a really hard time for libraries. It's a hard time for education. Things are really uncertain. A lot of the committee work I do, especially with the New York Library Association, is advocacy, is trying to figure out plan Bs, you know, trying to figure out how we can anticipate different things coming down the pike and how we could react to them. So I think this library is very open-minded, very proactive, and I'd like to continue that, and I'd like to help that grow. Thank you.
Ms. Sussman?
Yes, I've had a lifelong love of libraries. In fact, as my husband can attest, whenever we move across the 3 states, I had to check out the library. He would say, okay, this is convenient for me because I can get to the airport. I said, but wait, we have to go to the library. And as you know, libraries have shifted in many of the ways they serve the community. Back in the day when I was talking about the bookmobile, it was books. Books came to you, that was a form of library interaction. Nowadays, libraries offer probably one of the few open public spaces that you can enter for a whole host of activities. And through our partnerships, we have the ability to share costs across the Nassau library system, for example, through interlibrary loans, through a variety of streaming services where we can actually provide more materials to our patrons more easily. However, I think that we need to, whoops, what happened?
Yep, you have a minute.
I have a minute, okay, I saw different numbers moving. I think we need to consider how to help the library meet the multiple needs of a community for space to get together, for resources to find out things that they need to know or want to know, and to basically do it in a way that allows us to be fiscally sound. I think bringing a background of finance and management from other types of institutions adds to my ability to help this along. We were always struggling against not wanting to increase taxes with communities that were paying high real estate taxes and were concerned with the finance and fiscal soundness of our institutions. So I think I bring that type of other background. I also should share that I shop libraries all the time. I'm a member of 4 different libraries right now, and I'm constantly seeing new things, thinking of new things, and trying to help and lead us into the next decades.
Eileen, would you repeat the question?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, but I'm still
Yeah.
listening to my 2 colleagues.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
impressed by what they're
No,
saying, but I've
you know, I was
forgotten what
thinking the same
question
thing. The
is.
minute I walked this card over there, I thought that was a bad idea. I should repeat it each time for all of you, absolutely. All right, so, what, the question was, what do you hope, again, even if you touched upon it in your past, what do you hope to bring to the library as a trustee, including what motivated you to run, for this role as a trustee?
I really wanted to come full circle. I felt that I held every other spot in the library, and I really wanted to be a trustee. And ever since I retired, I was looking forward to it, and I thought, well, this is a good time to run. So I chose to enter the race. I feel that I have a broad enough experience in libraries and in the world at large to bring to the table, to help with budgeting, to help move the library forward in terms of technological advances and advances in the building, again, echoing what my colleagues have said, meeting space and a place for mentors and tutors to come, continuing to enhance children's services, purchasing the proper materials that the community is looking for, and continuing to provide the wonderful resource that the current administration is providing for the community, just to really keep that going and bringing it into the future.
Thank you. All right, now this question, we'll start with Ms. Sussman this time, and then, so again, some of you have touched upon this, but specifically, what do you feel is the biggest problem facing this library? Not necessarily libraries in general, we have other questions that have to do, but what do you feel is the biggest problem facing the library in the next 5 years, and what are some of your ideas of how to solve that problem?
You said we'll get into the other issues about libraries in general.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
fine. As I mentioned before, we are land-bound, if you will. We can't really get much physically bigger, and so we need to look at ways to make every inch of space useful and safe and up to date. And one of the issues that we have is that a lot of, the building is aging. And a lot of the non-sexy improvements include things like new HVAC, facing the problems of leaks, air quality, upgrading, painting walls, making things look newer, and actually looking for opportunities. So the challenges are always doing more with the structure that we have, and thinking through what the goals in the near future could be. One of the very nice things serving on the board is the turn to a lot of data. We literally know the number of people who walk through the door every hour of every day we're open. And we can watch patterns. Do they use more the rear entrance rather than the front entrance? When is it quiet? When is it busy? We know usage for every space that we have. So I think that our challenges are maximizing the facility, maintaining the facility without disrupting services, and making it a joyful place for people to come and share and be members of our community.
Okay. Ms. Brown, the biggest problem facing the library in the next 5 years, and how would you solve it?
I have to agree with much of what Ms. Sussman said. It is the biggest challenge to continue to maintain your physical plant with a budget, and a budget that has the restrictions of a tax cap, and to be creative with that money and look for ways to get other types of funding through grants and whatever else might be available, whether it be private donations, but to keep the library open and fully occupied, as the current administration has done, by beautifying the meeting rooms, allowing for quiet space upstairs, comfortable seating, painting the children's room, all of those types of things. I would like to see some money put towards the exterior of the library to keep it neater and cleaner, and perhaps at some point to reconstruct the parking lot, but maybe to change out the landscaping a bit and make the outside look as welcoming, as wonderful as the inside is.
Thank you. Ms. Faraday, biggest problem facing the library in the next 5 years, and how would you solve it?
I agree. I think that maintaining a library building is always a struggle. I think any homeowner knows that, but it's a lot more complicated with a library building. The library at Nassau Community College is also a very big, older building. Ours is cement, which has its own challenges. But yes, it's a very expensive thing to try to maintain a building like that. And I think that is always going to be an issue. I also think that there's been a lot of funding challenges recently with the cuts to the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and that will affect all of our libraries. As was mentioned before, we share services, so cuts to that system will go initially to New York State, but that will trickle down. So we all share resources, interlibrary loan, and monies. And so when those cuts happen, it's going to affect everyone, and that's going to be the major problem in the next few years that we will have to address. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Brown, you get to go first on this one, okay? What is a program that the library does not currently offer that you might like to see offered?
Okay, the library covers a lot of ground. But I guess a program that I would probably endorse, and I say with a little bit of trepidation because it has tentacles to it, but are bus trips. I know that quite a few members of the community would like the library to offer bus trips into the city, whether it be to a museum or to see a play or out on the island for the same reason. They like to go sometimes to Atlantic City. And I have heard that and know the fact that some libraries pool their resources and sponsor a bus trip together. Like we would sponsor it possibly with Oceanside or Baldwin. So that is something that I think might go over very well.
Okay, Ms. Faraday, you get next shot at that. A program that the library currently does not offer that you would like to see offered.
That is a really good question. I'm really glad I didn't have to answer that first. Yeah, I mean, I really struggle to think what else this library could offer that it doesn't already. If I had to find stuff, I guess two things come to mind. One is just to expand the library of things, which I think is fantastic. I was just telling my husband the other day, do you know that we can borrow a hotspot? This is amazing. And I know that some other public libraries have really expansive library of things, like you can borrow a power washer, you can borrow, like, it gets crazy. I know it gets crazy, but I think that it's an amazing idea and a service that we provide, and I would love to see what people would be interested in having access to expand that. The other thing is just, I know a number of people have spoken to me about maybe expanding some of the adult programs onto the weekends and evenings. I'm scared to even look over at the board because I'm sure there are budget and staffing issues with that. I'm sure there's reasons why that doesn't exist currently. But, you know, people who work 9 to 5, you know, are, you know, sometimes a little bummed that they can't get to certain programs. So I don't know that that's something that can be solved, but would definitely be interested in exploring that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sussman, a program that not currently offered.
I scan the weekly, monthly programs we offer, and I'm not sure if we, you know, there are so many here. I hate to mention something in case we do offer it already. However, I would love to have foreign language programs here. I think for adults to learn something like Spanish, which can be an asset nowadays in business and just intellectually, for travel would be a new offerings. We've considered ESL for those people learning English, but wouldn't it be wonderful for us to get together and learn other languages and cultures along with that, because that's the best way to learn. I also have seen, and this is a very big cost factor, I was just at a big library in Illinois, and they have a collaboratory. And this is for people to get together and work on projects for which there are needed resources that are hard to own singly. It's like a library of things, but you don't take it out of the library. So one of the things they had was a 3D printer. They had embroidery machines where people can come in and put monograms on towels and on baby clothes. And so there were things that would be hard for an individual to own, but it was a way to allow groups to work together. And I'm sure there are classes to teach people how to use that. That is a space issue and it's a cost issue, but it was something, if I could dream, that would be a fun thing to provide to the community as well.
All right, thank you all. All right, there's gonna be a series of questions now that are kind of just a little bit more personal in terms of library usage and, you know, your own, so not so much as a, give us, I guess, a look into your, sorry. So we're going to start with, as a former English teacher, my favorite question, all right? And this will start with Ms. Faraday. All right, I'm gonna combine these because they are impossible questions, all right? I've been asked to ask you what is your favorite book, okay? But I think I'm gonna just let you off the hook a little bit with, so what is your favorite book and or what books did you read recently that you've recommended? Okay, so how about we can go with those?
Okay. I appreciate the out because
Impossible question.
impossible. All right, so yeah, I'm taking the out. Two books that I read recently that I would definitely recommend. The first one is Everything is Tuberculosis, which sounds terrible. I'm sorry. It's actually a great book. It's by John Green, and I was immediately I immediately knew I wanted to read it because John Green is a wonderful author. Though normally he writes fiction. I don't know of any other nonfiction he's written. But the book itself is really terrific. It deals with factual information about tuberculosis, but it also goes back and forth with the chapters with his relationship with a young boy who has tuberculosis. And over the course of the book, you not only learn more about the history, but you also learn about how TB disproportionately affects impoverished countries. So it's about the inequities of healthcare as well. And it's just a terrific read. It really is. And it's so important. And the other one is, it's The Worst Hard Time. I want to say Timothy Egan. It's a book about the Dust Bowl. And really quickly, randomly in a true crime podcast that I was listening to, they mentioned something about the Dust Bowl. And I thought, really? Maybe I was asleep in class that day, but I don't remember that about the Dust Bowl. So I went in and got this book from the library and, and learned about it, but really learned about the Dust Bowl because this was definitely a gap in my knowledge. And that's a terrific book as well. They have pictures in there, real accounts from people who are still living, who survived it. And it's just a tremendous book. So thank you.
Okay, either and or, what is your favorite book or what books did you read recently that you would recommend and why?
Okay, well, I'm gonna take the out because my favorite book has changed every decade.
Yes.
Decade. After all, there are new books. I think that the most outstanding book I read recently is The Postcard by Anne Berest. And she called it a true fiction because it's written, it won multiple prizes in Europe, and what it was about the true story of her, of 3 generations of her family who were Jewish and fled Poland, and most of them went to France. And their goal was to become authentically French. Well, they went right before World War II. And the reason she calls it fiction is that she changed the names only of those families who were not, those people who were not members of her family, because she did not want to scar the current generation with what their grandparents or parents did as collaborators with the Nazis. It is moving, it is a mystery, it is extraordinarily well written. And then for fun, there's another book called The Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies. This is a book that was written almost as a spoof of Regency romances, but these two twin sisters are out to save women. And women of the time could not have property rights, they had no rights for their children, they could be declared insane by their husbands who could take their wealth, and they set out to rescue them. And it's a fun romp, but at the same time, it does talk about women's issues of that period. So those are two books I'd recommend.
All right, Ms. Brown,
Wow, yeah.
favorite
This
book or
all
which you?
sounds so good.
Take notes.
I did. I just finished Doris Kearns Goodwin's Unfinished Love Story, which I highly recommend as well. And she writes about the 60s and the 70s, and when her husband Dick Goodwin was a speechwriter for JFK and RFK and Lyndon Johnson. And it's really fascinating, and it tells about her and her career as well, and her rise as a historian. So I loved that book, and also I loved her Wait Till Next Year. I loved books like Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher and Lessons in Chemistry was a recent bestseller. I loved my husband's book, One Righteous Man, about Samuel Battle, the first Black police officer in New York City, and books like The River of Doubt about Theodore Roosevelt's trip up the Amazon. So I like a variety of things, and I try to keep my book groups current, and they like to read lots of novels. And so we've read Joyce Maynard, who I would recommend, and Ann Patchett, and another favorite book is called Dinner with Edward, which is a little gem, a nonfiction book, and I highly recommend that.
Great,
Thank you.
I hope somebody was writing these down. Thank you, thank you. This
I've
was
got
a good group to ask that question. All right, so now I just want to, let's go for a couple of hot button ones, okay? So, sorry, Meryl, you get to start us off with this one, okay? Should the library encourage the use of AI? Why or why not?
I would have to ask what are the parameters and in which way would encourage it. I guess I'm always hesitant to take writing away from the writers because I also do writing. But at the same time, I have found AI useful in helping with searches particularly. And I think that for people for whom there could be limitations in terms of, we're used to Siri, right? That's AI of a sort. Siri does things for us. And I think that if we use AI judiciously to assist people in searching for information, possibly summarizing certain types of genre details to help them find what they're looking for, it would be an asset, particularly for people who are challenged, because it gives another dimension in terms of not needing to type, perhaps, it could be audible as well. I am a little concerned because as a former English teacher, some of these are difficult challenges in the classroom. We had a bunch of struggles with essays written by bots, and now we have AI that's going to complicate the issue. So I have mixed feelings about that. I don't have a strong opinion yet.
Okay, Ms. Brown, should the library encourage the use of AI? Why or why not?
Well, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
That's true.
And I have to admit, I don't know everything that there is to know about AI. The little bit that I've used it, I'm completely impressed. I think its uses are so vast, and that we know very little about what it can do and how it will affect our lives, how it will affect the education of our children, but I'm sure it's going to affect them greatly. And I think the library will just have to find its way along with the rest of the public and every institution out there to watch and see how it develops and how it can be used in our particular type of facility.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Faraday?
I remember the question. Thank you, though. The library is, the trusted resource for the community. So I don't think it's so much, should we be encouraging it as much as it is, we need to know about it so we can share that information with our patrons. As Gretchen said, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, absolutely right. It's here, we need to understand what its capabilities are. We need to inform our patrons. And it'd be a great opportunity for, the schools are taking care of AI with our students a lot. But I think this would be a good sort of topic where you could connect programs. So for example, kids might have a program where they're identifying AI, and adults might have a program just to learn about AI. Like, what is it? How are students using it? How are our children using it? And maybe also just current affairs with AI topics. And, the good and the bad, but not giving an opinion. This is just like the pros and the cons. And I think that's an important role that the library needs to play for our community. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this is the last of the so-called hot buttons, so I don't want you to be stewing. All right. So again, an issue that is going to keep coming up. What do you feel the board's role is in the face of attempts to ban books or to control the availability of materials to the public? All right, and Gretchen, I think it's your start.
Yeah. Well, the Board of Trustees is the governing body for the library, and it oversees the fiduciary and legal responsibilities. But it is up to the administration and the staff to select the materials, and they do it in a very trustworthy way. They're educated, they know what their public wants to read, they use trusted sources and resources to select those materials. As long as they're appropriately placed and there is, hard thinking about specific materials and their purchase, and they've been well vetted, we're standing by our right and our freedom to read as written so carefully and enunciated so well by the American Library Association. And everyone who comes into the library may not be very happy with something, whether it be a book or a DVD or a magazine, because you can't please everyone, but you have to be able to defend why you purchased that. And there is the reconsideration form, which I think gives the public a very valid form of complaint. And once it goes through the library director and the team that she would choose to review that material, it could come to the Board of Trustees, and they would, of course, have the ultimate responsibility to decide what to do with that particular material. It is a real hot topic now. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Faraday?
Could you?
Yeah, sure. Okay. What is the board's role in the face of attempts to ban books or control the availability of materials to the public?
Well, as Gretchen said, the American Library Association has very clearly stated that it is against censorship, that libraries are repositories of information, and that it should be available to the community, all points of view on current and historical issues. I think the board's responsibility is twofold. One, to take those complaints and very serious, take the matter very seriously and address it. Make sure that the person who is complaining, feels heard, is heard, but then ultimately go through the process that's already laid out. Say you have to explain exactly what it is that is upsetting to you, and have that full conversation so that it's not a matter of just saying, no, you're not allowed to dislike this book, but to say, this is the policies that the library has, this is why we have them. And the board has done a wonderful job, the current board, of having very clear policies, having those policies available on the website, and I think that's a huge part of it. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sussman?
As my colleagues who are professional librarians have stated, the ALA and other civil liberty organizations have come out with this distinct support of libraries as an access to information. And the goal of the library is to help people answer the questions they have, to help them find the resources they want and they need. Our goal is to support the professionals, and those are the librarians, who within the budget constraints that we have will make the best selection of the best material for the audience that they know well, which will be the citizens of Rockville Center. As mentioned before, we do have a challenge policy where people can challenge a book or a placement of a book. That goes back to the professionals who will evaluate and make a decision and recommend a decision to the board. The board does not select books, and the board does not restrict books. I think that one of the wonderful experiences I've had is that I have walked into libraries and said, I need to know this, or I want to find out that. And never once did a librarian say to me, why, what are you going to use it for, and you can't. It was always, let's see how we can help you get the information. The first request I made at Rockville Center was for a book for which a single copy exists in this country. And they got it from a university somewhere in Texas. And when it arrived, all the librarians were so curious to see this because it was the one copy. But they answered my question. And I think that I know is the goal of the librarians and the library, to give you access to the information that you want and need.
All right, so I think I lied about hot button questions. Because now, all right, now I'm gonna ask you one that, and I'm just gonna change it, all right, because I'll tell you what the question was and how I'd like you to answer it, all right? So the question was, do you feel that the library should expand children's program offerings that regularly fill up quickly, even if there is a cost increase to doing so? Now, the reason I want to change it is because I know that that's not the role of, and you have all clearly shown that you understand the role of trustee versus the role of an employee. So I guess my question is, taking that as just an example, what do you feel is the best way the board addresses community concerns? Because it's going to be the person coming up to you in King Cullen that's talking about this, And so I guess, what do you see as the best way that as a board member, you would address a concern, such as increasing children's programming or something like that, okay? And so I think we're starting with Ms. Faraday.
I think it's a hard position, but I think that listening to the complaint, I get request. Concern, thank you, concern is important. But then also, you'd have to really explain to the person the reasoning behind that being the case, because I'm gonna go along with that, with the question sort of, and say, it's not a new program, but they want to expand it or something, to explain why it's not currently offered in that way. Also, I think a lot of times people just aren't aware of how expensive a lot of library resources are. You know, nobody likes the Libby holds, you know, nobody likes any of that. Nobody realizes how expensive ebooks are unless this is, you know, your day in and day out. So I think that, you know, we have a very reasonable community, and so if some of that information was shared and along with specifics, whether it be staffing or whether it be space, I'm sure that as long as the person felt they were being taken seriously and those types of things that are not common knowledge were shared, that would be the best way, I think, to tackle that.
So to shorten my 18-hour question for you, all right, really we're kind of like, what do you feel is the best way that a board member can address community concerns that are brought to them? You know, for instance, why about a certain children's program or something like that?
About additional space in a
Yeah.
certain children's
Yeah.
program. Funny you should mention that because we have been grappling with that. Because as I say, we have the data, we know how large these classes are, how well, how oversubscribed or subscribed in the complaints that we get from patrons that say, I couldn't get my child in. We are looking for opportunities to increase the offerings. Yes, there is a cost because we have budgets and we want to keep our increased taxes as low as possible. And to get staffed for these various programs is a budget issue. Space. We are looking for opportunities to increase available space. And then there are certain options that no one's going to be happy about, but there could be lotteries, there could be rotations of admission. You book the fall program, maybe you can't book the spring program as quickly because other people will close out. But we have been discussing this because we know certain programs have become extraordinarily in demand. The other thing is we are looking at, one of the things that we grappled with is the stroller parking lot in the children's area. You know, nannies come with huge strollers with multiple children and they want to use the children's area. We want to encourage them to do so, but where do they put these large strollers? So we're looking for different ways to make access, increase the access in safe ways for our population. And the board has to approve those types of expenditures.
Okay. Ms.
You don't
Brown?
have to repeat it.
Yes.
This is so multifaceted, and I could probably spend a half an hour talking about it because I've dealt with a lot of these issues, and I have some solutions maybe that wouldn't work here as well as they work possibly in other communities, but there are ways of addressing getting more people or making our programs a little bit more equitable. But things like the strollers and the budgetary concerns and the number of staff, they're universal questions that every library director asks her or himself constantly. And I would say if a community member brings it up at a board meeting or when you're in Cullen, you do have to be a little bit vague. You need the time to talk with your other trustees about all of the constraints, the budget constraints, the space constraints, the time constraints, and come together as a group before you answer the community member. Because just as both my fellow running mates here have said, there's so much more to be discussed, and you need to do it maybe even during executive session so that you can really talk about all of those things and how best to answer your community. But they're universal questions that come up all the time.
Okay, so now the next question is fairly specific. How confident are you in your ability to understand financial statements, and can you speak to experiences with finances in this capacity? All right, so again, I get the idea of the question is addressing the role as the fiduciary responsibility of a trustee. And so how confident are you in your ability to understand financial statements, and can you speak to experience with finances in this capacity?
I'm very familiar with the financial responsibilities and finances of public institution. For more than 10 years, I served as a dean of a large division in the largest community college in Illinois. College of DuPage had 30,000 students, and my division was business and technology. And I ran a division that had 75 staff and faculty, had 15 different laboratories, including an automotive repair shop, and a culinary program that had a kitchen and multiple kitchens, bakery, and restaurant, as well as a store where they sold their baked goods. I dealt with union contracts and their costs. I was on the negotiation team representing management as we renegotiated contracts. And I've had to do this all in the context that our college was funded by county taxpayer dollars. So the college, the DuPage County was one of the wealthiest counties in Illinois, and they were very proud. I mean, we had a Philharmonic, we had a symphony orchestra and a repertoire theater. So we were important to the community. Because of that, looking at budgetary issues and concerns and analyzing the finances of another public institution is something I feel very, very comfortable with, and with 3 years service I have done. So I think that I bring out that experience as an asset to this community.
Great, Ms. Brown?
Thank you. I too have dealt with budgets and finances throughout much of my career, all of it as a director. And I've learned to read a budget and create a budget and work with the budget and do complicated grant applications and return reports. But I also have to say that it is very important to me to have a staff that is also knowledgeable in these areas. Not only the board, but your administrative staff, your business staff, to have a good accountant and auditor that can really take you through a lot of the very detailed specifics and guide you. And I find that essential.
Thank you. I do feel comfortable with budgets and the financial aspects, really because of my role as the chairperson for the Nassau Community College Library for 3 years. Prior to that, I had no such experience, but that was one of the great takeaways from that position that I held. Nassau is a complicated budget situation. It's a SUNY school, so it's state. It's also Nassau County, so there's funds from the county and obviously tuition and increases, decreases. So the budget is a complicated one. Also, we had, I think around that time, I'm going to say 60-something employees from 3 different unions, and that was always a factor. Additionally, we had declining enrollment, not during those 3 years, but previously. So our budget for not just the library, but for the entire campus was always a source of contention. Also with grants, we did seek a lot of the grant funding, and having worked that into a budget is always a fun time. And construction costs, because it never stays the same, right? So all of that being in a budget, I don't love it, but I feel comfortable doing it. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
All right, this question is, how many board meetings have you attended in the last year? How, if any, have you participated with the Board of Trustees in the past year, in the last year? So we're starting with Gretchen, that's you.
Can I go back 2 years?
Sure.
Because I started coming to the board meetings here at the Rockville Center Public Library as frequently as I could. I would say in the past 2 years, maybe 6 or 8 board meetings, and I very much enjoyed them. They were pretty routine business meetings, and I was very happy to just sit and be a member of the audience.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Faraday?
In the past year, I've attended 2 board meetings, but I always read the minutes. I enjoyed the board meetings when I was there. It's very finely run, as we were discussing before. You guys do a great job. Everything's very orderly and organized. And because of that also, it's very convenient to read the minutes and get an idea of what went on at the meeting.
Well, I have an advantage, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, this year I didn't miss any.
Okay.
Previously, sometimes there's one meeting I might miss, but yeah, I run my life around the board meetings, and frankly, I have colleagues who are amenable. I mean, many of us have said, oh my God, something came up, can we move the meeting? And we have been able to accommodate that, so.
Okay, all right. The rest of, there are several questions that kind of revolve around a similar topic that we kind of addressed in some of your comments on programming and being aware of community needs, but this one seems to say, really we're just combining 2 questions, that what is the role of the Rockville Center Library as a community resource, okay? And what is the role of the Board of Trustees in continuing that mission, all right? So what is the role of the library as a community resource, and how do the Board of Trustees fit into that role? All right, so that we're starting with.
Sorry, I should keep track.
No,
of
I'm
that.
having a tough enough
I was
time.
thinking.
That's okay.
So what is the role
What
of
is
the
the role of the
library?
library as a community resource?
As a community resource, I think I mentioned before, we're the trusted source of information. To me, libraries are about community. And so that should be kind of the number one detail, right? That should be a huge focus. And I think some of the ways that this library does that, and it's really commendable, is to all of their programs are really thoughtful in terms of what the community needs. So, for instance, the way that the library responds to the needs of the school district and the students, besides the wonderful art show, but providing volunteer opportunities for the students. Also, some of the testing resources, there's like a test prep resource, and I think that's fantastic. But as well as reaching out into the community, running various things where they have donations going on to support different community resources, and making sure that they have programs that address the needs of each kind of patron, not just student age, and having the adult workshops, the wonderful book discussions, drawing and painting classes, and yeah, I think making sure that your library fills the needs of the entire community, and you're not just too focused on any one particular group, which this library does in spades.
Ms. Sussman?
One of the things that I find really wonderful about the library is that it does outreach to communities that don't necessarily or cannot necessarily come across the threshold. For example, there is a program of, and it just shifted its name, but it was basically Library at Your Door, which was literally for homebound people, will bring library materials in a bag to the home so that people can continue their lifelong love of reading. There is a problem with moving young school children to the library for field trips. So the librarians are going to the elementary school to bring information about the library resources and books and opportunities to the children at their schools. The other thing that I mentioned, I have gone back to reading hardcover books because I do so much on the screen. I just wanted to get away from the screen. And I'm here a lot to pick up books. And I heard a person say this, and she was a woman, as the French would say, of a certain age. Not a young person necessarily, but she says, I get books online and I read them on my Kindle. I come here for community, to share time with friends, to learn new things, to relax in pleasant open spaces, and to play canasta on game nights. So I think that if we look at what she was saying, is it's a community resource that is open for meeting her needs of socializing, and how much we miss that during the pandemic, and how much people are welcoming the opportunity to do that again.
Ms. Brown, what is the role of the library as a community resource?
Well, the library has always been considered the jewel of the community, and it still is. And it's a testament to the administration and the board that they work so well together and continue to provide the resources to the community. I'm proud to say that both of those programs that Meryl just spoke of, I started at the library. And working with the students in the going into the classrooms, especially with the middle school. So I'm proud to hear that they still continue. I think that whatever the community puts forward as a suggestion or a recommendation to the librarians, the director, or the board's going to consider it, because your community members, you want to see your community happy, you want them to feel that their taxpayer dollars are going towards something that they really value, and that has been the case for years and years with this institution, and I know it will continue into the future. Everyone works together. There are libraries throughout Long Island that have really difficult boards where the administration and the boards are at odds, or the community is at odds with one or the other. We're very fortunate that we don't have that here.
Great, wonderful, thank you. All right, I think that you really have done, I think all three candidates have done a wonderful job really addressing a myriad of issues. So rather than become repetitious with some of the other questions that remain, I think we're going to move now to closing statements. All right, as you remember, you have 3 minutes to make your closing statement. The order is going to be reversed. So this time, Ms. Brown, you will go first.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who came tonight, especially the board, and I thank Michael for, I wish him well in going on to his next, whatever it is, and I'm sure it'll be exciting. And I also want to thank both of my running mates. You sound amazing. I'm running for the library board because libraries are not just my career, they're my calling. I've witnessed firsthand how Rockville Center Library has evolved into a vibrant, welcoming space that enriches lives every day. But there's always more work to be done, and with challenges like censorship and funding threats growing across the nation, our library needs experienced, forward-thinking advocates who will champion access, equity, and innovation. If elected, I will bring my decades of experience, my passion for progress, and my unwavering dedication to this role. And together with the board, the staff, and the community, I believe we can ensure that the Rockville Center Public Library will continue to grow, adapt, and thrive for the next generation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. Sussman?
I recently saw a wonderful documentary on PBS, Independent Lens, and I really suggest you watch it. It's called Free for All, the Public Library. And it tells the history of the public library in this country. And it reminds us that for much of history, books were not available to the common person. Autocrats, kings, church leaders, emperors wanted to limit access to ideas and information, and it was the way to maintain their power. Our founding fathers took note of how people could learn how to govern themselves when they had access to information, and Benjamin Franklin saw the importance of libraries as, in his words, the first ticket to freedom. And he established the first, in quotes, public library in Philadelphia. At that time, however, women, blacks, minorities, the poor did not have access to the library, mostly because it was a subscription basis and because they were just not free enough to enter. We have more recent history of how vital information is to the freedom and how it might be controlled. We know how Nazis burned books by Jewish authors and by others they considered degenerate. In the McCarthy era, librarians were asked to turn over the reading lists of patrons so that reds could be hunted. And many librarians went to jail and prison because they refused to, they wanted to protect the privacy of their patrons. I would like to continue to serve on the board because I want to advocate for our public library. I want to protect it from threatened funding cuts and from any other threats that would limit access to information that is vital to preserving free thought in a democracy. I have learned a lot, and I will continue to serve this community, and I hope that you will support my reelection to the board.
Last but not least, Ms.
Thank you. And thank you, all of you, for coming and for this opportunity to speak. Libraries stand for three things to me, which is the free and equitable access to information, community, and lifelong learning. This library excels at all of these things, and I want to keep that going. I believe I have the experience and the enthusiasm to substantially contribute to the board. In this climate, schools and libraries have to be alert to local, state, and national issues that affect them. Libraries need to assess emerging risks and actively advocate for funding. I want to do this work, and I want to continue to have this library excel. I started out in libraries 20 years ago, and I've been a librarian on Long Island for 20 years. I get to work every day in support of library resources. I regularly attend conferences and lecture on educational resources. My husband is a teacher, my sister is a teacher, my friends are teachers, my colleagues and I trade articles on privacy literacy and techniques for instructional sessions. So why am I telling you all this? Because, well, one, apparently I don't want anyone to talk to me at parties. And two, like, this is my wheelhouse, right? This is something I'm very passionate about, which is libraries. So I'd be honored and excited to be a member of the board, and I thank all of you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and effort that you put into preparing for tonight. Thank you for really making the decision about voting really, really difficult. All right, thank you, thank you. It's a tribute. I think it's a tribute to our community that we have such a wonderful choices for the vote on May 20th. Correct. So I want to turn the meeting over back to Madam President. All right, to finish up.
Thank you, Ms. Harriet Burke, for doing such a great job facilitating, and thank you to our candidates. I almost wish we had 3 seats, knowing that stick around for another year, but thank you for being so well prepared, and I took a lot of notes on things I want to read and things I learned from each of you, so thank you very much. And on that note, I'd like to ask one of my fellow board members for a motion to adjourn our session today.
I'll make a motion. Oh. I'll make a motion till we end the session.
Second. All in favor? And thank you, everyone, for attending.
This was terrific, ladies.
Such talent, such wonderful talent.
now.